Welcome, everybody. My name is Kim. I am representing AIM Early Idaho today as their volunteer endorsement coordinator and facilitating this discussion today with Denise. This is our 5th Lunch and Learn presented by AIM Early Idaho, and we're really grateful to have you and your time and your investment in yourself for the important work that you guys do with young children and families. So welcome back if you've been to one of the other 4 sessions, and welcome brand new if this is your first part of our 6-part series. We only have one left, and it really is focusing on strengthening and sustaining the infant and early childhood workforce through relationships, reflective practice, emotional well-being, and you're going to have plenty of opportunities to explore how infant and early childhood mental health principles, including reflective supervision, co-regulation, professional identity, support resilience, reduce burnout, and strengthen long-term engagement in the field. So right now I want to take a minute for other members of our AIM Early Idaho board to step up and say hi. I think I saw Jane pop on. Hi, Jane. And I don't know that I see anybody else. I'm kind of scrolling here. I know we've got a lot of our board members out on vacation this week. So welcome. In the meantime, if you guys wouldn't mind dropping your name into the chat so we can take attendance, organization you work for, and complete the sentence. The part of my work that fills my cup is. The part of my work that fills my cup is. Give you a minute to get that going. Okay, building relationships, watching families make progress, connecting with colleagues in the field, seeing parents enjoying their children. These are all wonderful things that help fill our cups. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is. So today's session is inviting us to reconnect with our professional identity and name the emotional work, the weight of that work, and explore how belonging and community protect against burnout. The title of this Lunch and Learn is Burnout to Belonging, and I would like to welcome back Denise McDrummond. Denise is the Executive Director of the Missouri Association for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health, and she brings more than 20 years of experience in early childhood education, infant mental health, and a focus on reflective practice, relationship-based approaches, and supporting the early childhood workforce. And I've been fortunate enough to be working alongside her for several months now as she's helping onboard me as an endorsement coordinator. So Denise, thank you for being here, and for everyone else, thank you for all being here and everything that you do every day to support children and families. And right now I'm going to turn it over to Denise.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I love the question. That was a perfect question for this session, Kim. And really everything that everyone was mentioning, those are wonderful cup fillers, and it makes a huge difference. So yes, I am Denise McDrummond, and I have been able to work with Idaho for quite a while now, and it has been an incredibly rewarding experience learning about what you guys do, because, I'm in Missouri. We don't necessarily do exactly the same thing. There's a lot of other acronyms that we use here than what you guys use as well. Every state has their own, and it's been a pleasure really seeing the work that you do. And I got to be honest, um, I have taken some of those ideas about the work that you guys do and that I have seen you do back to my board and my partners and say, hey, you know what? This has been really effective work in Idaho, and I think it's something that we need to be looking at. So that is a huge benefit for me as well. Hearing about what you do, learning from you, and really understanding the connections that you have to your state and to the children and families. So, um, yeah, I just wanted to start with that and to say thank you for that. And I know today, of course, from burnout to belonging, it's not another, we're not going to be learning any interventions. It's not another strategy. Really, today is about you. Because we know that before we can hold children, before we can support families and strengthen those systems, we have to remain connected to ourselves. So this is a small group. So what I would like you to do is we're going to have a few different moments within this time together today to really think about things, to take a moment to reflect and to speak out. And I'm hoping that you will be willing to either unmute or to pop something into the chat. And Kim can get hold of it there and relay that. But I really want you to participate and to think about what we're talking about, because this is a topic that really affects every one of us at one time or another in our careers. You may not be experiencing it at this time, but chances are you either have experienced it or you will experience it. So in that frame, I'm going to put our first thought up. And again, please feel free to unmute or to put it into the chat. When did you first know that you wanted to do this work? You know, because we all have an origin story, right? Sometimes it might be that a teacher influenced you in such a way that made you think, this is what I need to do. Maybe it was a child. Sometimes it might be even our own experiences. And those stories matter because we know that burnout most often begins when we lose connection to why we started the work. So we don't want to lose that connection. So some of us already have, and that's okay. We can work at finding that. But to start finding that and to remain connected, think about, who inspired you? What drew you to this work? What did you hope to offer children and families?
We're getting, when I went to a career fair when I was in college, my child's first early childhood teacher inspired me.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice. And, I'll say for mine, I think that I've always known that I wanted to work because that was, the work that I did. It was a child that was in my life. And that was from when I was much younger, my first time to babysit. I was 12, and of course that was done back then. Um, but that little boy, I fell in love with him. And I knew then that I wanted to work with kids. That's what I wanted in life. So I think we all have that origin story somewhere in us. Okay.
And other people chimed in, Denise,
Okay.
similar to you
Okay.
with the babysitting business. Started
Yeah.
a journey, a trauma psych class in college, interning at a child
Oh,
advocacy center, working with at-risk youth, adolescents, and teens.
I,
awesome.
I
And
was actually a migrant Head Start parent in my journey, and I I loved how they helped me grow as a parent and understand development in children that I just started working in that field.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And it's amazing, our own experiences will at times determine that road that we choose to take. So that's perfect. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, guys. So we want to make sure that we also recognize that our identity isn't tied to a title. You know, I'm a therapist or I'm a home visitor. Your identity is made up of so much more. You know, it's, you know, I'm someone who helps children feel safe, or I'm somebody who notices others. I'm someone who protects relationships. It's bigger than just a title. It encompasses our relationships, our beliefs, our values and purpose. It encompasses our sense of meaning. It's not just a title. We all have a title of some sort. Home visitor, early interventionist, educator, you know, whatever your title is, that's not your identity. That's not the whole of you. When we're looking at that, we want to make sure that we look beyond the titles. Because the title is just that, it's just words. So we enter this work because we either, you know, maybe it's because we love children, or we believe that relationships matter. We want to make a difference, or we value families. Some of us do it because we believe healing is possible. So we might be able to find out why and remember why we entered this work. But a bigger question might be, what keeps us here? Because that can sometimes be the trickier thing. I mean, we all wake up and go do the same job again. You have a hard day at work and you go home, you do your own family and go to bed, and you come up, you wake up and you do it all over again. So what is keeping you in this job? Because we know that reality is always going to hit us in the face. You know, whether it's large caseloads or all the paperwork and documentation, because there's a ton of that. We have limited resources. We have exposure to secondary trauma. We're isolated, in a sense, from others just in our particular job and role. There's staffing shortages, high expectations, compassion fatigue. I mean, it's very rare that someone leaves this role or this field in general because they stop caring. That's a kind of a rarity. Often though, we leave, and people do leave because maybe they cared too much and for too long without enough support. That's the reality. Oops, apologies, went too far. So picture the bridge, and that I found what I could. So a lovely bridge, and on one side you have your purpose, and that's why you entered the work, why you started doing it. Maybe it was that experience that you had from your past that you know, inspired you. Maybe it was that one child or a favorite teacher. So that's on one side, and on the other side is the work that you do every day. So getting to that from purpose to practice, you know, it starts out as a nice bridge with everything in place, but stress slowly removes the boards from the bridge. You know, and that stress might look like those high caseloads or isolation or that systemic pressures. It doesn't happen all at once. It's just a little at a time. We start walking across that bridge, and then, oh, we look down and there's a space because one of those boards has gone missing. It might be that staffing shortages have just hit your organization and you are trying to do the dance of everybody's role and you're struggling. It might be that you know, you keep going further, you're able to get past that, and then we have some more limited resources. Our budget has been trimmed. You know, it comes to a point where so many boards come missing that professionals don't feel connected to the work anymore. It's not just a one, all at once kind of thing. It's just a little at a time. It's kind of like the adage of the frog in the boiling water. You put a frog in cold water to cook them, and it just stays there because it does not realize the danger that it's in. And sometimes it's the same with people. We stay in this role and continue to go. We're not connected to our work anymore, and we don't realize that that is putting us in danger of burnout. That is putting us in danger of, truly being disconnected from the work. So it's something that we need to be very aware of, that it can happen. It can happen to all of us. And it may be that you're in the thick of burnout right at the moment. So looking at what stress can do, all those boards that can be removed from our connection to the work that we do, it can pose a big danger to us as a professional. And just being aware of that is important. So burnout really it's emotional exhaustion. It's cynicism. Wow. For me, I have to be aware because I can tell when I'm starting to get, a little bit, not burned out, but I'm really starting to stress out, which, can lead to burnout. But I tend to get a little sarcastic. So I have to be careful. But I do notice that. So, my cynicism comes out through sarcasm. And I think we all have pieces that if we pay attention, we'll realize that, oh my goodness, I'm stressing. That reduced effectiveness. Maybe you're just not connecting with families as well as you used to. Maybe you are not engaging in the play with children in the classroom that you used to do. So that compassion fatigue is real. It's hard. We all help children and families that hold really hard stories sometimes. That secondary trauma is huge, and it stresses us. That it causes that emotional depletion, because we are so worried and focused on this family that is going through some very hard things and very hard times. And we are worried and dealing with that stress and coming home and dealing with the stress of our own lives. We're emotionally depleted. We're running out of battery. Our emotional batteries are drained. And of course, that piece of moral distress, we know what these children need. And whether we are unable to provide it because, our own emotional battery is just completely drained, whether, or maybe, because of the stress, we're just not connecting with our families. Whatever that may look like, the stress that it's putting on us as a professional is really, it may not be obvious to you. It may not be obvious to the people that you're working with, because some of us are really good at hiding things, right? Sometimes we need to stop being so good. But recognizing what is it that is stressing you so that you can actually do something about that is going to make a difference. And again, that goes to that time of reflection and getting to know ourselves. So one of the guiding principles of infant mental health is that relationships protect development. And why would we assume that adults are any different than kids? We all, and this is something we've talked about several times over these last lunch and learns, is that adults have the same needs as children. And we recognize that it's okay for children to have these needs. And we forget that it's actually okay for adults to have these needs as well. when we look at that, we know that children need relationships, safe relationships. Adults need safe relationships as well. Children need space to be curious. Well, adults need that as well. We find that in those reflective spaces, right? That's a space for curiosity. All of these things, co-regulation, consistency, being seen. Children need to be seen. Adults need to be seen. As a professional, we need to know that we matter, that somebody values us. Just like children, we need to feel important to someone. And of course, children need hope, and adults definitely need hope. And that's what gets us up out of bed to do that same job all over again, because there's hope that it is making a difference and making a change and making an impact. So that parallel process, what supports healthy development in children also supports the adults who support them. It's very parallel. It works in the same way for adults and children. And to know that, to recognize that, is part of what is going to make our job easier. It's part of what's going to keep us in our job. Because while the work isn't going to change, it's always going to be hard. There's always going to be things that have to be done. Having that, those needs met goes to really creating a place in within ourselves that means that we can keep going. Just like kiddos. So we know that burnout has been a hot topic, and it has been for several years. We hear about self-care and resilience and wellness, and those things definitely matter. But I also want to suggest something else today. Burnout isn't always the absence of energy. Sometimes it's the absence of belonging, because there is a difference between being included and belonging. And I think we've all felt that. You know, we know when we're being included in a conversation. We're invited to those meetings. We know that we're on those email lists and we're part of the organization. But belonging is different. It's deeper. Belonging is walking into a room and feeling like you don't even have to prove yourself. It's knowing that you can ask a question without feeling foolish. Ah, what a relief and a just a space to be able to do that. It's feeling safe enough to admit that the day is hard. It's about believing that your colleagues care about you as a person, not somebody who can just get the work done. So in the field, the infant and early childhood mental health field, we often talk about psychological safety for children, because children thrive when they know that they can make mistakes, that they can ask for help. They know and they thrive when they can express those huge emotions and know that they're still going to be loved. And the remarkable thing is, adults aren't any different. We need those same connections and conditions, because when we don't experience belonging as a professional, something begins to happen. We stop doing things. We stop asking questions. We stop sharing ideas, and we start hiding our struggles. We start isolating ourselves. And eventually we actually begin to wonder if we're even good at this work anymore. Excuse me. And it's not because we become less capable. It's because isolation changes how we see ourselves. It truly changes what we see when we look at ourselves. And I think one of the greatest gifts that reflective supervision offers isn't simply better practice. It reminds us that we're not carrying this work alone, that somebody is curious about your experiences and notices all the heavy stuff that you're holding. Somebody is able to help you make meaning of those hard times and those difficult moments. And that really, truly restores more than just competence. And it restores identity. And that's what we're needing. We need what it was that we came to this work for. We need to remember. And one of my favorite definitions of belonging is this, and I love this. It truly hit a few years ago when I was looking at it. It says, belonging is being accepted for who you are while also being encouraged to become who you are capable of becoming. And just think about that. Being accepted for who you are while being encouraged to become who you're capable of becoming. That's exactly what good reflective relationships do. They don't ask for perfection. They just want us to stay curious. So if burnout is gradual disconnection, then belonging is gradual reconnection. One relationship, one conversation or reflective space, even one person, a colleague who says, I've been there too. Sometimes that's enough to help somebody remember why they chose this work in the first place. So when we feel like we belong, we think more clearly. We ask for help sooner. We recover from difficult experiences more quickly. We take healthy risks, and we remain connected to our purpose. And let's think about this even just from a neuroscience perspective. Our brains are wired for connection. From the moment that we're born, our nervous systems develop in relationship with other people. And that doesn't suddenly stop when we become adults. When we experience belonging, when we feel accepted and valued and understood, our brains actually interpret that as safety. And when our brains feel safe, remarkable things happen. That is where we become more curious and more creative, more patient, more compassionate. It's where we become better able to solve problems and regulate emotions. And of course, the opposite's true. If you feel isolated or disconnected, that's when our brains shift into protection mode, that fight or flight. We become more vigilant, hypervigilant, more reactive, less creative. We become conserving emotional energy just to make it through the day. And that's why burnout often feels like you've lost yourself. It feels like you just don't know who you are anymore. Well, you haven't lost yourself, I tell you that. It's your nervous system has been working overtime to try to protect you. Belonging doesn't eliminate, excuse me, it doesn't eliminate hard work. It doesn't make dealing with difficult families any easier. It's not going to take away the paperwork or any of the things that make the job hard, but it changes how much of that weight that you have to carry alone. Okay? And that's why reflective supervision and having supportive teams and healthy workplace relationships matter so much. It doesn't make the work more enjoyable just on its own. I mean, it makes it more enjoyable when you have these experiences, but it really helps to regulate your nervous system. So if you see in the visual, when you're carrying the weight alone, it can become overwhelming. But when you're carrying it together, those same rocks are still in the backpacks, right? The same things, the trauma, the caseload, the paperwork, all of the stuff, it's still there in the backpack. But now there's other people to help us hold it. Now there are things that help support us as we are trying to carry it. So when you think about that, it makes a difference having that connection. So if belonging changes how we experience our work, I think the next question then is going to become, how do you reconnect with your own professional identity? Because reconnecting isn't about finding a different job. It's not about moving out of this field and doing something completely different. Reconnecting is about finding that person in yourself who answered the call to this work in the first place. So here's another thing I would like you to unmute or put in chat. I am at my best professionally when what? How are you at your best in this work? Just curious. You can unmute, you can put it in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. How are you at your best professionally?
Got some responses coming in when I'm not overwhelmed.
Yes. Yeah. I feel that one.
Supported by upper management.
Mm-hmm. Having that support makes a difference. So how are you at your best professionally? And I will say, I think all of those things are very real and very true. I'll say, when I get overwhelmed, if I at least have a place to share my overwhelm, that becomes a time when I can be at my best because it's very easy to get overwhelmed in this. This work is hard. Okay.
Having staff support when not overwhelmed. I'm supported when I have the tools needed to do my job. When I have a cohesive team, when leadership shares values and vision, having flexibility with my schedule, and safe spaces to share my thoughts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think whoever put in the comment about when leadership shares their values and vision, that's big because when we don't know what direction we're supposed to be going, how do you do the work? So those are great. Those are really good answers. And it can be really challenging to get to those points, right? Because we don't always have those supportive relationships. That again is part of the reason that we urge people to have those reflective spaces, to be able to think about the work they're doing, to find that support and connection. Okay. So, and you don't have to answer these out loud unless you would like to, but these are some things I'd really like you to think about. What values first brought you here? What strengths do you bring to this work? Who reminds you who you are in this work? And this is one that Kim had asked earlier, and I thought it was great. What fills your cup? What drains it? So, as you think about those things, um, and actually, you know what? Since Kim did put the what fills your cup in that question earlier, what drains you? What is it that pulls you and disconnects you from the work that you do? I mean, as we're thinking about how we came to this place that you are in, as far as your work and your role, what is it that keeps you here? What fills your cup while you're here? Well, what drains it? What drains you in the work? And I think there's a lot of different things that could be said for that. But what drains you?
Feeling like I'm not making a difference is what's coming in. Running into barriers, red tape, being stuck in the paperwork and not the real work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, have to help.
Micromanaged.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That can be hard. Those all can be hard. I don't know if anyone has ever read the book. It's called Start with Why. Simon Sinek. He has a podcast as well. But he really helps. It's this. He really helps people to get to the why of what brought them to this work, and really explains again, why does it matter? And it's not even so much just the field in general, but why matters. Why we choose to do what we do every day matters. Um, it's a great book. I would encourage you to read that if you have not done that. But he has several things that are very inspiring um, when it comes to that leadership development and helping you to find that why. So, but thank you. That's good. So when we talk about protective factors for children, well, it's not so much that it's so different for professionals. There are things that we need in the work that we do to keep us grounded, to keep us doing the work. Things like community. We need to belong. We need to feel a part of something. And again, not just being invited in, but to truly feel that we belong. Mentorship is a protective factor. Having somebody that you can lean into to have that sharing space to have. I will say, as I have changed roles, the one thing that has been very consistent in the work that I do and from job to job is to have somebody who has done that job in that role before to kind of lean into. And that has been huge. That is something that everybody can benefit from, is having that mentor space. Permission to be human. Oh my goodness, because we all make mistakes. Oh my goodness, we are so human. We have the same needs as children. We need that safety. We need to feel seen, to be valued. We need permission to make the mistakes. We need permission to know that it's okay and that just because you made a mistake, people aren't going to turn on you. But that permission to be human. We need support from our peers. We need to know that we're not alone in this job. We're not alone in this work. And there are so many places to be a part of and find that kind of support, whether it is in your job specifically, or even just within your field. So maybe within your organization, if you're a home visitor, or within a group of home visitors, being able to have that connection, even out of state. There are places that you can connect with people in your sector, whether it's home visiting or early education or whatever sector it may be that you're in. There are ways to connect with others across the country and to find support for the work that you are doing. Reflective supervision spaces. Again, those spaces are going to provide the opportunity for people to be curious, to feel valued and understood, to talk about and find meaning in the hard work that you're experiencing. Celebration. We need to find ways to celebrate those small things, because sometimes it's all small things and we have to take those wins where we can find them and we have to celebrate those. It might be something that you look at doing with your peers and your colleagues. It might be something you do on your own. Wow, you get home, I made it through the whole day and didn't lose my temper once. That's worth celebrating. Or, you know what? I finished this report and it was really, really hard. And that's worth celebrating. Celebrating those small things can actually connect you to the work that you're doing more deeply. celebrating those little moments that you experience connects you to your colleagues, to the families and children that you're serving, and celebrating with your children and families. Finding ways to celebrate those little things that you're experiencing with them. If you're in the classroom, celebrating the win that, hey, Travis didn't bite today. That's a big day. That's great. So celebrating those things. And then, of course, learning and professional development, seeking out opportunities to learn and engage in the work that you're doing. Like this space. Coming into this space, it's not just about hearing another thing from somebody. It's not just about having me talk to you. It's about being in the same space with colleagues across your state. Being able to connect and to learn from others. So continuing to engage in professional development opportunities is going to connect you to the work that you are doing. And it helps to mitigate those hard days and the hard feelings that may come because of those hard experiences. All right. You cannot build belonging alone. It doesn't happen in isolation. It only happens between people. So if you have found that you've pulled away, if you have found yourself disconnecting from colleagues, disconnecting from children and families, then you have to make yourself re-engage. You have to find ways that will help you to do that, because belonging is not going to happen when you've disconnected, when you are holding yourself separate from everyone. And sometimes it becomes a very comfortable space to be in. Again, it's that frog in the pot. We don't even realize it's happening. It's comfy. It starts out as a nice cold bath, and then it gets a little warm, and it still feels good. Pretty soon, this is a hot bath, and it's okay. I'm fine. I'm fine. You tell yourself you're fine long enough, and then all of a sudden you're not fine anymore. And you didn't even realize it. So we cannot do it on alone. We cannot do it on our own. The words I'm trying to get out. It has to be built in connection with others. So this is just something I want you to think about. Some questions that help you to really think about how you feel right at the moment and who you can turn to. So who sees you in this work? Who really sees you? It's different than being invited in. Who really sees you in this work? Who notices when you're struggling? My husband will be the first to say, yeah, you're getting kind of sarcastic. He knows when I start getting sarcastic, I'm starting to get kind of stressed. So who notices you when you're struggling? Who celebrates your growth? Who is willing to step up and really just encourage you and celebrate the fact that, hey, you finished that, or you went to this training and you learned something new? Who celebrates that growth? And who can you be honest with and say, maybe it's honest enough to say, yeah, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this work. Who can you be honest with? Because it's those people, or maybe it's one person that you need to be able to connect with regularly, that you need to be able to talk to about the work that you're doing and how that it isn't easy and how you're doing in this work. You need to be able to say, yeah, I'm on my last legs. So who is that? Honestly, I would encourage you to write names down. If this is one person, then write their name down. If this is more than one person, maybe that person that you can celebrate with isn't necessarily the same person that notices when you're struggling. But hey, they are there every time something amazing happens. So write down those names because you need those names. You need those people in your court. So the opposite of burnout isn't simply rest, it's connection. Okay? Yeah, we can all take a vacation because, isn't that what the recommended practice is for people who are burning out? Maybe you just need some time off. Okay, well, that's never a bad thing, and I will not turn down a vacation. But that's not going to connect you to your work. It's people. It's reconnecting with people that's going to actually prevent burnout. So it is feeling like you belong that prevents that burnout. So while vacations are nice and rest is never to be, taken for granted, it's connection that is going to tie you to your work and prevent that from happening. Okay, we've spent some time talking about professional identity, but again, identity is not something that you just discover once and keep forever, right? Because as a professional, our identity can change. I used to, my professional identity has changed. When I first started in work, I was a high school teacher. So now I'm completely different. It feels like my personal professional identity has changed. It's something that you return to again and again and again. And there's going to be difficult seasons. There's going to be changes and paperwork and staffing shortages. There's going to be hard conversations and families who are struggling. Those things aren't going to disappear. That is never going to change. But what can change is how connected that you feel while you're living in the thick of it, while you're in the thick of staffing shortages and paperwork, how you feel. So I don't want you to leave this space and think that your job is about to become more resilient or easier. But I hope you can leave thinking that your job is to remain connected to your purpose, connected to colleagues, to reflective relationships, connected to the children and families who remind you why this work matters. And most importantly, of course, connected to yourself. Going back to that, why did I enter this field? Why am I still here in this field? One of the biggest dangers, I think, that is because we are in helping professions, I think one of the greatest dangers, we become so focused on caring for everyone else that we stop noticing ourselves. And I know as a young mom, and I was a stay-at-home mom for several years, my own identity became so wrapped up in, what I was doing. I stopped noticing myself. We become so involved, and I think that's a danger because this is a helping field. We forget to notice ourselves. We become really good at asking, how are you doing? And we very rarely ask ourselves the same question. So reflective spaces give us time to pause, to really notice, and to become curious instead of critical. It allows us time to acknowledge that we're human beings doing very emotionally demanding work. So if you think back to that first moment of reflection we did today, think about the person who that you've chosen to this field, that person inside of you that chose to do this job, the version of yourself who believed that relationships mattered, who believed that children deserve to feel safe and to feel seen. you know, who believed maybe families could heal. And that person is still there. They may be tired, because goodness knows we are all tired. They may be very discouraged or carrying a lot more than they were ever meant to carry alone, but they're still here. And every time you have a reflective conversation, every interaction with a supportive colleague, every moment of belonging helps us to find our way back to that person, that reason that we entered the work that we do. So, and I know that as I reflect, there's been a lot of seasons over this past year that I've looked at my calendar and wondered if personally I was spending more time managing an organization than I was impacting lives. You know, in my role, there's grant applications, and many of you have the same things: fiscal reports, HR policies, conference planning, contracts, board meetings. You know, it's easy to wonder whether I was drifting away from the work that I was wanting to do, that was calling me to this place. And then I had a reflective conversation. It was actually in reflective supervision. Um, Somebody said to me something that kind of stopped me and said, Denise, you're still doing the work. You're just holding the people who hold children now. Because in the role that I am in, I don't get to interact with children. I don't interact with families. But hearing those words was huge for me. I needed to hear those words. And nothing about my job changed. My inbox was still overflowing. I still had to deal with budgets and deadlines, but I at least remembered who I was. And that was incredibly, incredibly helpful. And sometimes that's all that belonging does. It just reminds us of who we already are. So taking some time and slowing down and remembering that, remembering who you already are. Relationships connect us. They connect us to each other. They connect us to the work that we do. They connect us to who we are. And that matters. You remember that realization reconnects you to your identity. So as we finish up, I just want you to remember that your professional identity isn't built by never becoming tired. It's built by coming back to what matters over and over again. Every time that you reconnect with your purpose, every time that you allow someone to support you, every time that you choose relationship over isolation, you're strengthening yourself, but you're also strengthening the whole workforce, the infant and early childhood workforce, because what you do matters. Who you are matters. I hope you take some time to really think about the work that you do and how it impacts you. And Kim, you've got all this information, but I just wanted to make sure that this was up there. AIM Early Idaho, your office hours, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so you can talk about that. But again, please, it's hard to lose yourself professionally, and we've all been there. All right, sorry, Kim.
No, that's okay. Thanks, Denise. Thanks for a wonderful presentation and helping us recognize that we need to help hold ourselves in ways that are meaningful so that we can do this work. So much appreciation.